Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott, and I'm here with Charles Scott Jr.
Junior, I was going to say, how you guys doing this week? Another episode of Can We Talk, another informative episode. We're going to talk about some things, whether it's trending topics or whether it's how you get into a house. We're here to help you.
And again, we represent Tri-State Realty. I am the broker. Charles is also co-broker for Tri-State Realty. And we're located throughout Connecticut to service you. So if you're looking to either purchase or sell a property, we have not only real estate, but we have a lot of information we talk about on this program. We talk about some of the coming events, the economy, some of the things that might affect your life. And every week on a weekly basis, if you tune in, you can actually see us on this program, or you can go to, what do we have? The
YouTube, Facebook, any
YouTube,
social media really.
Facebook.
TikTok, we're on there too.
Exactly. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the previous things that have happened within the last week.
Yes.
And every week there's always something going on. As we say, there's a lot of things happening with the economy.
Yes, the economy is always changing, I was going to say. As we know, last week the Federal Reserve met again. Actually, this is the first time they met for 2023. Last time they met was in December. And we're getting a change of tone as far as what people call the Federal Reserve being bearish. They're being more dovish now. They didn't increase it by too much. What, 0.25?
Yeah, quarter of a point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people right now are, trying to, what is that thing about don't fight the Fed?
Yeah, don't fight the Fed. That's the slogan you always say,
That means that whatever they're proposing, it's hard to anticipate and sort of go against the grain.
Exactly.
So whatever they're thinking to do, it's kind of hard to say. A lot of people are saying that they should even go harsher and go higher and just get it over with and get everybody to slow down. But then again, they don't want to do that, because if they do that, then that could send the economy into a
depression.
Whirlwind. So
what they call is kind of like people call it a soft landing, or peeling the Band-Aid off very slowly. That's what the Federal Reserve is trying to do. They're trying to ease things back to what we were at most likely in 2017, 2016, when inflation was between 2 and 3%.
This year, what are we anticipating, Charles? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, this year I think the Federal Reserve is going to continue their increases, but I'm thinking we're going to get a return to normal as far as I think prices are going to have to come down. They're going to start slowing down. As you see, companies are firing people, which people are saying, well, that's a bad thing. I would say, although those people are losing their jobs, you got to think about it. These companies, they had a whirlwind worth of profit the last 2 years, 2020, 2021 with the COVID. Amazon, they expanded so quickly, they kind of overestimated. They hired a whole bunch of people that they didn't need. Now things are back to normal. They're saying, wow, we got to get rid of all these extra employees we have.
But then again, when you look at it from the other side, the jobs numbers just came out.
Oh, yes, and record job numbers.
And record amount, in the last week, a record amount of people were hired.
Yes.
It's like they expected something.
517,000.
They expected what was it?
184.
100 and some thousand, and 500,000 people were hired.
Yes.
So that threw everybody for a loop, because nobody expected that.
Yes, I've seen a lot of economists say, wow, this is a different type of recession, where how could we be in a recession when we're hiring 500,000 people?
Right. Because in one sense, they're laying people off. Then on the other sense, they're hiring 5 times as many people.
Exactly. Different sectors are actually booming. Definitely.
So what's that mean? There's where the question mark comes in with the Federal Reserve. So what are they going to do? They got to think, well, wait a minute now. We're supposed to be slowing things down, but while we're trying to slow things down, companies are still hiring like crazy.
Aggressively.
So that means more money is going to be out there. And with more money, people tend to go out and spend. And if they spend, then it feeds the fire, and then inflation keeps going higher and higher and higher. So no one really has a crystal ball to see where we're headed. And it sort of like puts you on a roller coaster ride, and you're saying to yourself, I wonder what's going to happen next, because now if these people are being hired, are these people going to go out and start spending? Is that inflation's going to go back up? No one has, how can I say it, a clear path to making money where they could just say, we're going to put all of our money in this here, and this is how much money we're going to make. Because you never know what's going to happen and how things are going to change.
Exactly.
It's very you can't put it in a computer and come out with numbers.
Nope, you can't predict the future. But the thing is, what people must do is be prepared whether the economy excels or declines. You want to be prepared and be ready for anything that could happen.
And what's that mean? That means, well, if you have a good job, or if you have a job, stay put for a while, because we don't know which way it's going to
Exactly.
go. Save as much money as you possibly can.
Yes.
Don't go out and become extravagant, buying new cars and new
Well, tell 'em,
furniture.
don't be tempted by these tax season
Oh,
commercials.
my goodness, isn't that
It's tax
something?
season right now, and you're going to see a lot of aggressive advertising, whether it's coming from car dealerships or coming from furniture stores especially. Say you don't have to pay until next year. Remember, that's going to be on your credit, and that's going to be a debt you have to pay.
Exactly. So you go out and spend all of this money, and especially money that you don't have. In some cases, they try and get you to pledge to spend the money before you even get it in your hand. And so now you're out there spending like crazy.
How about this, not to interrupt you? I saw a car dealership. I'm not going to name any names. They will do your taxes there at the car dealership. How about that?
Right there.
They want to know what you're getting back.
Sit right there. Then, sign that over to us. All right, now step over here. Let's show you our latest model.
Exactly.
So you got to be careful of when you're out there as to what's going to happen with the economy.
Very true.
And, these people, they're not really concerned about later on and the depreciation. They don't tell you about all of
They
that.
don't tell you that. They drive off the lot and the car is worth half of what you paid.
Right. In other words, what comes first, the house or the car? I would say in a particular case, the house should come first.
Exactly.
If you buy a two-family and you buy an investment property, the property can pay for the car.
Exactly.
And if you're renting it out. So there's a lot of changes that are occurring out there. We've talked about the rents have stabilized. We see rents is coming down a little bit because
Yes.
it's not continually going higher and higher and higher. You can only charge people so much.
Yes, that's what I see, especially with some new listings as far as they still think it's 2021 with as far as the money is still out there, the stimulus money. A lot of these rents, a lot of them are inflated, as I say. A New Yorker may come to Connecticut, buy a 3-family house. Everyone in that 3-family house is paying $1,200 a month. Guess what? This new landlord, he paid a lot for that building, maybe a lot more than the previous person. He needs to recoup that. He's going to increase the rents to maybe $1,800. That's going to disrupt that family's, budget.
Exactly. One of the things I wanted to talk about today is that you hear a lot about rent to own.
Oh,
And a lot of people don't understand how that works. It sounds good. Sounds good. Rent to own. In other words, if I'm paying rent, I might as well pay rent, and the rent's paying off the house, and now I own the house.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
It's not as simple as that.
Not at all.
Rent to own. Also, it sounds like I don't have to have any credit because I'm already renting, and if I'm already renting, then I'm already in the house, so that means that my rent's all going towards buying the house.
Sounds fabulous, doesn't it?
Rent to own. I even noticed recently, I was riding through certain city, and there's rent to own signs everywhere. Every corner's got rent to own, call us, rent to own, call us. So we called, remember?
Yep, I remember we called them.
We called them. We figured, they got signs everywhere talking about rent to own. So we called them up, and it's not as you think it may be. Nope. Maybe tell them a little bit about what the experience was.
Yeah, we called them up, and it looks like it was a condo. I'm not going to say what city, but a city near the water. Right down the street from that city. And what it was, you looked at it, and you're basically paying an inflated price. It's not worth
Exactly.
what they're asking. And when you're paying that, you got to think about it. If you miss one payment, then they have the opportunity to foreclose on you. That's what it is. Rent to own is you're going to go inside this place. It may need some fixing up. Guess what? They'll allow you to fix it up. They'll say, okay, it's going to be yours anyway.
Great. Fix it up.
Fix it up, make it look real nice. But remember, that's an inflated price they're charging you. And how much equity are you going to have after having this house? Or condo, like we saw what it was.
Not only that, think of it like this. You just said if you don't pay for it, they will foreclose. But guess what? In most cases, they do not turn the ownership over to you.
Oh, no, they're going to hold that deed.
Rent to own. When you're buying a house, there's two things. There's a mortgage and there's a deed. The mortgage, that's how much money you owe for the house. You sign two different contracts. One contract is the mortgage, saying you will pay off the house and pay the monthly payments.
Correct.
The other is the deed, where the owner of the house will sign the house over to you. It's the only type of situation where you own something before it's paid off.
Exactly.
However, You can't go out and sell it because in order to sell it, you have to get the deed. You have to get the deed released.
Correct.
You got to pay off the mortgage. The mortgage holds the house. So if I give you the deed and you have a mortgage, you can't take that deed and go sell the house to somebody else, because when they check, they're going to say, well, wait a minute. You're selling me something, but you haven't finished paying for it yet.
Exactly.
So I can't buy it. So now when you're doing a rent to own, the owner usually will not give you the deed.
Nope.
He will put in writing, after you finish paying for the payments, then I will give you the deed to the house. So if you miss any payments, he does not have to foreclose. All he has to do really is evict you because
Yes.
you don't own it in the first place. You don't have the deed to it yet.
Exactly.
So therefore, it's sort of misleading in a sense. It says rent to own. Even though you are still renting, eventually you will own it. However, you got to realize you cannot afford to lose any or miss any payments, because then the owner will actually be able to take it back. It's almost like you're still renting. The other thing is, like Charles just said, the owner will encourage you to fix the property
Yes.
up if the property needs work. And here's where some of let me put it this way: it's good if it works out, but it can be very bad if it doesn't work out.
And 9 times out of 10 doesn't work out.
The owner will take a property that needs a lot of work in some cases, and the owner will say, well, I'm not going to fix this property up because I'm going to find somebody to sell it to or do a rent to own. So then he comes along and he gets this person, maybe it's a carpenter or maybe it's a person who needs a place to stay. So that person, he may even hold the mortgage. He'll say, okay, I'm going to give you this property. You can fix it up and make monthly payments to me, and in the end result, you'll own the house. Now you go in and you fix it up. You put new flooring in, new
Carpet
roof,
and
carpet.
everything.
You make it look really, really great. But then you have hard times. You might lose your job or something happens.
Yep.
And then he takes the property back. So now he's got a nice house all fixed up because you did all the work.
Exactly.
Then he could turn right around and rent the same house out to somebody else, another rent to own situation. You can start all over again. Now, the way a lot of rent to owns are structured is this. Let's say, for example, your normal rent would be $1,200 a month. So instead of $1,200 a month, you pay $2,000 a month. So $1,200 goes to your normal rent. The other $800 is put like in a little savings account. That's put aside for you to be able to put down on the house or pay off the house once you're in a situation where you can own the property. So you're paying more than you normally would, with the end result being that he will be able to sell the house to you later. Maybe you have credit that's not that good. Maybe it's going to take you a year to fix your credit. Maybe you don't have the down payment. Maybe you don't have the closing costs.
Maybe you're getting a promotion at your job, you get paid next year, more money. Multiple factors.
So therefore, you do a rent to own, and that extra money that he's putting aside, later on, after you've established your credit, you may be able to go into a bank and get a regular mortgage. So that's a good thing.
Yes.
But if you do not pay him, if you do not close on the property, he gets to keep the extra money you gave him.
They don't know that part.
He or she, it could be a woman.
They get to keep the money.
They get to keep the extra money.
Now, think about that. You say, wow, all that money I gave to the landlord to put to the side to buy the house, I missed 2 payments. Now he's taking me back. He's evicting me. He gets to keep the money. What's stopping you from just doing that yourself with your current apartment? Put aside, if you could, $800 a month and start saving to buy a house traditional way, using a down payment through a bank or a mortgage lender.
Right. I'm not saying rent to own is bad. It's just that you have to know the terms.
Yes.
And the other thing is, if you're going to get into a rent to own situation, get yourself your own lawyer.
Yes.
The person selling you the property may say, you don't need a lawyer.
Use
You
my
can
lawyer."
use my lawyer. Use my lawyer.
Save some money. Use my lawyer.
Now, who's that lawyer working for? It's working for the seller, not you.
Exactly.
And the wording in that contract is put together by the owner, not by your attorney. Your attorney, first of all, you don't have one. So
true.
he's going to say to you, well, you don't have enough money as it is. I'm doing a favor, giving you a rent to own. You don't need an attorney. Use my attorney. My attorney can do the same thing for the both of us. Now, look at this situation. Suppose something goes wrong. Well, what are you going to do? Go back to your attorney? Well, first of all, realize you don't have one.
You don't have an attorney.
The attorney you used was the seller's attorney.
Exactly.
So if something goes wrong, you have to go back to the seller's attorney, who is probably suing you. And he's going to say, oh, I can't represent you. I represent the seller.
Exactly.
So therefore, you got to go out and get your own attorney. Now, the other attorney that you go to is going to say, why didn't you come to me in the
Like I
first
said, how'd
place?
you get this deep into the situation?
Who wrote
Why'd
this
you call
up?
me?
Why'd you sign this? Why'd you do this? Why?
Exactly. At that point, it might be too late.
So I'm just saying, it's not a bad idea as long as you get decent terms and you
Yes.
know what you're getting yourself into, and you abide by the terms of the. And also, here's another thing too. You know, make sure you get a good interest rate, because what's happening is that they're doing a rent to own. They're holding some of your money. So some of that money they are investing and putting aside for you. And
Yes.
you got to say, what happens to that money in the event that I am not able to perform? One of the things you might want to put in there is that, okay, I'm going to buy your house within 5 years. I'm going to rent it for 5, then I'm going to be able to get the whole thing done. What if you can't? Put a clause in there. What happens to your money? Do you get part of your money back? Do you get your money back? Or will you get an extension? Will the owner say, okay, you're not able to do it right now, but let's do it for another 2 or 3 years.
Exactly.
And I'll still add the money that you're giving me into the money that you're using. So these are some of the things that you got to be careful of when you're doing a rent to own. Just make sure you get good representation.
And also, if you want, call a real estate agent. Remember, when you're buying property, it doesn't cost anything to use a real estate agent. Maybe give your local real estate agent a call and give them the address and say, what do you think from your personal opinion? What do you think? If you run some comparables, what do you think this house is worth on the open market? And, maybe they'll give you an answer. I mean, we would. Give us a call. If you have a house that you're interested in, definitely. We'll give you an estimate and then let you know what we think it will be worth.
You just mentioned something very important. I forgot that. See, that's why it's good as a team.
Yeah, double team them.
That's right. First of all, if you are, we get this, because we get that question a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of times we get a situation where a tenant's been living in the house. And I say, how long you been living there? Oh, I've been living there 25 years, and the owner wants to sell the house to me. So you know what's the most important thing? What is he willing to sell it to you for?
Exactly.
The house might be worth $250,000, and he's willing to sell it to you out of the goodness of his heart for only $350,000 or $400,000. So the owner is saying, I'm giving you a great deal. For $400,000, I will let you buy my house.
Exactly.
Now, because you're not using a real estate company, you don't know the value of the property.
And a lot of tenants are just honored that the landlord would even consider them to buy the house versus put it on the open market. So they may say, whatever he says, I'm going to take it. I see that a lot.
A lot. And they're so happy to buy a house, they don't question anything.
They don't question
nothing. They don't question a thing. So therefore, the owner is selling you the house for $400,000. See, normally when you buy a house and you go to the mortgage company, first you have an inspection of the property. You find out everything that's wrong with the property, and then you have an appraisal.
Yes.
So the bank sends somebody out. If you want to buy a house and you're willing to pay a lot more than the house is worth, guess what? The bank and the appraisal will say, we're not giving you the money for this house. That's too much. You're overpaying.
No.
But if you're buying the house because the landlord is just telling you it's worth $400,000, and you don't know, you might as well say 600, 700. It's just numbers to you.
Exactly.
And you say, okay, that sounds good. So now what if the house is only worth $250 and you're paying $350 for the
You're
house?
underwater before you even get the house.
And these sellers going to say to you, you don't need an appraisal. What do you need an appraisal for? And it's like buying a car.
How about this? You don't need an inspection. You've been here for 20 years,
Yeah,
right?
you know what's wrong.
Great. Yeah, you know what's going wrong with this house.
Yeah, what do you need an inspection
You
for?
know what's right and what's wrong with the house.
Now, if you live on the first floor and you don't live on the second floor, maybe they're going to go up there and find out this is wrong, that's wrong. You know, and what do you know? Do you know if the house has termites?
How about this? Well, we run into multifamilies. We have an inspection on multifamily. Sometimes you realize, I've been on the first floor for 20 years. I've been paying the third floor's electricity this whole time.
Oh, don't get me started on
Oh,
that
yeah,
one.
we see that often.
So, you know, maybe that's something we're telling you. If this, let's put it this way. You know, there's always these jokes. If you're living on the first floor, all right,
Yes.
and you're paying your lights and you're paying your gas, and the person on the second floor moves out and has their lights turned off, and some of your lights go out. Guess what? You've been paying for their lights all this time.
Exactly.
Because I've seen that happen where a lady lived on the second floor of a 3-family house, okay? And what happened was the people on the first floor moved out. And they had their lights turned off. Well, part of her lights went out also.
Yes.
And so she's like, okay, what's going on here with this? So I went down into the basement, and an easy way to find out if your lights are hooked up to the other tenant's lights is go down and turn the circuit breakers off to your apartment.
Yes.
So if you go downstairs and you turn all the circuit breakers off to your apartment, because it's always usually 1, 2, 3, and it's right on the panel there. So if you go down and turn off your lights or turn off the main one to your apartment, and all of a sudden the first floor starts banging, hey, what's
Hey,
going
where'd the
on?
power
You turn our lights off. Or if the third floor starts saying, running down the stairs, hey, did your lights go off too? Guess what? You've been paying for their
You've
lights.
been helping them pay their bill all this time.
You've been paying for their lights all this time. And you can't imagine how many times something like this has happened.
Yes.
Now you might say, well, how does that happen? Here's how it usually happens. If you have a 2-family house, and let's say the family lives on both floors, and the landlord lives on the first floor, and maybe his sister or brother, or maybe his children lived on the second floor. So all of the lights were combined together, and they are aware of that. They know it, but it's no big deal because everybody's family.
Exactly.
So now he moves out, and he rents the first floor to this person, the second floor to that person. Well, neither one of them know who's paying for what. They don't even question it. As long as the lights are on,
Hey, lights are working.
hey, they're working. One may get the first floor may get a bill of 150. The second floor may get a bill of 300.
Exactly.
And they just figure, well, hey, that's just life. That's just the way it is. And sometimes, and a lot of these multi-family houses, if you have a 3-family house, you have 3 meters outside.
Correct. People don't realize this.
People
Very
don't
good.
realize that. 1 meter for the first floor, 1 meter for the second floor, and 1 meter for the landlord, even if he doesn't live there, because
Yes.
the outside lights and the lights in the hallway are paid by the landlord. But usually
Exactly.
the way it works, in a lot of cases, is if you go outside and you see 2 meters and you got a 2-family house, someone and one of those renters is paying the outside lights and the hallway lights and the
Yes.
porch lights.
That happens a lot. People don't realize that. And which sometimes you'll see 2 meters on the outside of the house and space for a third meter that was just never installed.
Never installed. Because the landlord figures, hey, until they catch me, I'm
Yeah, right. I don't want an extra bill. I got enough bills. You see that a lot.
I'll leave it the way it is. So what we're telling you is this is some things that you need to look
That's
into.
good. We're gonna have people lower in their basements.
We're gonna have people out there now running.
about-
Before you run down into your basement, finish watching the program.
Exactly. Didn't do that.
then go and say, Mr. Scott, I'm glad you told me that. But you know, I've seen that happen so many times.
Very true.
I had about 4 years ago. I had a lady, and she was arguing with the light company forever because her bill was so high. She could never get through to them because they didn't understand what she was saying. So what I did is to help her out. I went downstairs and I cut the circuit breakers off, and sure enough, the lights went off on the first floor because she lived on the second floor. Then I went outside and I took photos of the meters. Every one of the meters has serial numbers on it, and you have the meters there, and it shows as the electricity comes through that meter and goes into the house, that's how much they create your bill.
That's how they measure it.
Right. And a lot of times what happened is the meters were transposed. You can unplug those meters and pull them right out of the sockets. So one meter where the electricity was getting billed was in the wrong socket, and this meter should have been over there in the other socket.
Exactly.
So there's so many things, especially now. We're in the state of Connecticut, and in the state of Connecticut, the electric bills just went up 40%.
Yes, definitely.
40%.
So this information is even more pertinent with all the things going on in 2023. The delivery charges for electricity and energy are just going to be skyrocketing.
So tell your friends and take this little bit of information that we gave you today. Go check on your electric bills.
Now, what do you say to tenants who, let's say, for example, the landlord locks the basement and they can't get to the circuit breaker? They do have a right to see that. I mean, they are paying electricity.
That's exactly it. And the other thing that you can do, like I said, is you can call the electrical company and they will come out and check it for you.
Exactly.
You got to open it for the electrical company. If you suspect that you're paying electricity and you're for someone else, all you have to do is call your electrical company and ask them for a service call to come out and check the meters.
Exactly.
So the landlord can't say, well, I'm not letting you in my basement.
Well, you have to let the company in.
Got to let them in to check. And a good way of finding out, like I said, is if you're in a two-family and you only got 2 meters out there and there's no landlord meter, somebody's paying for the lights.
Exactly. Very
In other
true.
words, it's either you or the other tenant. So today we gave you some really good information, some really good tips for all of you to go out and try and put more money in your pocket.
Definitely. And in closing, I just want to remind people, remember the programs going on in Connecticut right now, Time to Own. Also, there's a program to help people who are facing eviction. Check the ct.gov website.
Oh, that's a new one that just
That's
came
a new
out.
one just came out. Remember, people use that. It was $5,000 to help people who are facing eviction.
Right.
But until next week,
God bless.
God bless. Amen.
And listen to ours.